Well, actually, in today's video, we're going to have a look at when it's 8 to 10 days. In today's video, this takes us up to around the 15th of February. So we're going into the second half of the month with this update. It looks like high pressure is going to be sticking around over the next week to 10 days. Very, very dominant. Could be really dry. Some places may not have any measurable precipitation in the next sort of 10 days or so, week to 10 days. So very, very dry conditions coming up. I think we're going to find the temperatures lifting up a little bit over the weekend into the start of next week, but the exact position of this high pressure is going to be quite important later on next week. There's just a few hints this morning that we could get a little bit of retrogression. Retrogression is where high pressure goes from east to west, as opposed to the typical situation, which is west to east. Normally, the jet stream and everything else is moving west to east because of the rotation of the Earth. So that's the typical flow of the weather pattern. But sometimes you can get areas of high pressure that go retrogress, that go from east to west. And there's just a few hints of that this morning. When that happens, the high pressure tends to end up somewhere around Greenland and turns it colder. So we do potentially have the risk of some colder weather coming back again later on next week up to around the middle of the month. I'll show you all the charts in a moment. Before we get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on most of the pages at gasworks.com. Have a browse through the widgets, and if there's any articles that you're interested in, just click through. You'll be able to go off and read those articles. And thanks very much for doing that. That's helping to pay for the website. In fact, just have a play around with all the ads, really. See what you think to them. They're helping to pay the website. That's why they're there. They're on the page, sort of paying for gasworks.com. So thanks very much for doing that. Very quickly, starting with the radar picture from the weatheroutlook.com. We can see we've got these precipitation rates here across central eastern parts of England. Some of that snow, it's a bit of a wintry mix. Some of it is a little bit sort of rain, sleety. Some of it also is snow. If you have a look at the precipitation type with that, we can see that, yeah, we have got some snow in there. It's not amounting too much. I've had a bit of snow here this morning, but it certainly hasn't settled. In fact, last night, sort of slight dusting of snow has gone this morning with this precipitation coming through. So if anything, it sort of got rid of the snow that was already there from last night. So we're not doing too much. It's been pretty well predicted to get this area of light snow coming across England and Wales this morning, and that's pretty much what we've got, not really amounting to too much. But that'll carry on through the rest of this morning into this afternoon, gradually fizzling out. Now, this is the Central England temperature provisionally for February from Hadley. Very cold start to February so far. We can see that the February CET is standing at a provisional 1.3 degrees, which is an anomaly of 3 degrees below average, so significantly colder than average. That is provisional up to the 3rd. This will be updating within the next few minutes. I'm doing the video at around 11 o'clock in the morning. This will be updating in the next few minutes, taking into account yesterday, the 4th of February's central England temperature may drop a little bit more, actually, based on that. But anyway, significantly cold start to February. I think that'll be ticking up a little bit next week, actually, because it will turn a little bit less cold, certainly through the first and middle part of the next week. Right, this is 500 millibar height anomaly flow chart for the next 8 to 10 days. You can see a lot, of course. Got the E70F here on the left, the GFS is over on the right. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. So red is extrapolating to high pressure, and blue is extrapolating to low pressure. Notice, once again, it's been so frequent this winter. We've got a ridge of high pressure here across the western part of the United States. We've got a deep trough of low pressure over in the east of the states. So up to around the middle of February, this takes us to around the 14th, 15th, Eastern America is in for it again. Another very deep trough there, bringing very cold air down from Canada into northern and eastern parts of the United States. The overall idea that I had and other forecasters have for this winter for America was that it would be a cold winter in the east of the United States, and that really has come true in the past few weeks. It's been such a frequent sort of idea over the last few weeks that we've had this trough in the east of the states. It's there again in the next week to 10 days, so more cold and more snow on the way for them. Now, for us, we've got this ridge of high pressure around the UK and out in the Atlantic. And we've got some slight differences here with the GFS and the ECMWF on the position of that high pressure. The ECMWF wants to take that high pressure a little bit to the north, get a little bit of warm air advection, actually, because of this trough in the east of the states. It's pushing the air out in the Atlantic, and then it's promoting this ridge to the central part of the Atlantic. So actually this trough in the east of the states is sort of helping us on this chart get some colder weather, would you believe? So we've got this ridge in the central part of the Atlantic, got warm air advection going up towards Greenland, and that allows this very deep trough to the east and the northeast of the UK to push cold air down into the UK on the ECMWF. Now, we don't get as much amplification of the ridge on the GFS, so everything is a little bit flatter. It's the same sort of idea, really. It's not that far from it. The trough to the northeast is further to the northeast, so it's not as close to us, that cold trough, and the ridge isn't as amplified in the middle part of the Atlantic. Nevertheless, it's the same sort of idea, and it certainly isn't that far from it. And I think we do have to watch out as we get through towards the end of next week. I think we do have to watch out for the chance that we could pull down some colder air from the north once again. The GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are quite interesting for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average. Obviously, we're significantly colder than average at the moment, as we have been through the last couple of weeks or so. We're going to be moving upwards over the weekend inside of next week with those upper air temperatures going a little bit above average. In fact, in terms of the upper air temperatures early next week, it'll be nearer normal on the surface because we're under high pressure. So we won't see the temperature becoming particularly warm next week, but as I say, for the upper air temperatures, going a little bit above average with surface temperatures around the average. And then we sort of stay quite mild with the upper air temperatures throughout next week. And generally, the ensemble mean wants to keep it on the milder side of average. But notice all these cold outliers that are appearing once it gets around the middle of February. This is the 13th of February, just here. That's next Friday, Friday the 13th. And yeah, you can see that we have got several members of the ensemble. Whilst they are outliers, they're not really well supported, but are going at really very cold indeed around the middle of February. And then that progresses, perhaps a few more appear later on in the ensemble chart. What's happening with these is that the high pressure out to the west of the country is sort of ridging up towards Greenland, allowing a very cold northerly plunge to blast down across the country around the middle of February. Now, as I say, the ensemble mean, which is the white line here, this thick white line, generally keeps it mild and average. So these aren't well supported, but it is an option that this could happen. And in light of how the ECMWF has gone this morning, I think we do have to take the possibility seriously that we could get quite a big northerly plunge coming along around the middle of the month. Now, the temperature anomaly for the next week, this dates from the 5th to the 13th, is still showing cold and average, but this is moderating. This is taking into account the current cold condition that we've got. This will generally go nearer normal over the next few updates, because next week will be closer to average, but still just about for the coming week, the 5th to 13th February, we're colder than average and significantly drier than average as well, with high pressure really dominant. So this is the midnight run of the GFS. The high pressure is in there nicely across the country at 1,035 millibars. This is for Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 10th of February. Yeah, really dominant area of high pressure across the country. It's going to be mainly dry. Temperatures will be a little bit closer to average. It will depend on this, whether we get clear nights and fog, actually. If we do get that, then it'll be frosty and foggy. That will linger into the day, and even though it's mild aloft, or quite mild aloft, down on the surface it could actually be quite cold. So if we don't get the fog, it'll be nearer normal with the temperatures on the surface. If we do get the fog and frost, then we're going to be down below average still. But the idea is that high pressure is very dominant through next week. So we go through to Wednesday the 11th, and high pressure is in there across the country, really dominating conditions. Thursday the 12th, high pressure still in control, but notice it beginning to split a little bit. Some of the high pressure is drifting to the east, and some of it is going into the central part of the Atlantic, with this cold trough developing to the north of Scandinavia. So what happens as we go through into Friday the 13th is that this new area of high pressure from the Atlantic sort of settles in across the country, but there's very cold air pulling down on the eastern side of that high pressure into Scandinavia. Notice again a little bit of warm air advection, which is southerly winds from the Atlantic going up in towards Greenland, but it's generally quite flat still. It is amplified. There is some amplifications, a little bit of amplification, but generally the warm air advection isn't going up into Greenland as strong as it does on the east of the US, so that's why we don't push this ridge further north. But nevertheless, there is very cold air just to the east of us, and we do pull down some of that cold air into the high pressure at the end of next week. So that will be temperatures sort of sliding away later on next week, with an increasing risk of some hard overnight frost coming through. And then the high pressure just carries on really into the middle part of the month. So this is Saturday the 14th, Valentine's Day, and yeah, it's still in there. Very intense areas of high pressure now within quite cold air. Actually, there's quite cold air sitting across the country under that high pressure, so an increasing risk of frost with that one. And it just goes on really into day 10, which is Sunday the 15th, high pressure there over the country. The cold shot, that cold northerly that's into Scandinavia, has gone into the eastern and southeastern side of Europe, but it's very, very close to putting it into the UK. The ECMWF actually does it. This is the chart for Wednesday from the ECM. Wednesday the 11th, high pressure in there over the country. As we move through, we find that by Friday, there's definite signs of ridging from the high pressure going up towards Greenland. There's the cold northerly wind pulling down into Scandinavia, bringing bitterly cold air there. Notice we've got much better warm air advection going into Greenland, with these areas of low pressure off Newfoundland sort of pushing these southerly winds up into Greenland. That's what's allowing this ridge to be pulled up as the warm air goes into Greenland. It creates an upper ridge that starts to retrogress the high pressure up towards Greenland. On the eastern side of high pressure, we start to pull down these northerly winds. As we go through to Saturday the 14th, we've got the high pressure centred over Iceland then. Definitely putting down cold northerly winds with that one. If you have a look at the upper air temperatures, you can see that the cold air is plunging south across the country. It's very close to being cut off. We need to see this high pressure going further north and west, really, to be confident that we're putting down that cold air. But it does it on the ECMWF this morning. It's very cold air indeed. Actually, really, really cold. -10, -15, 850 HPA air, plunging south on the eastern side of that high pressure. We go through into Sunday the 15th, day 10, and the high pressure is still generally out to the west of the country, already showing signs that we're starting to cut off that northerly supply of air, but it's very cold by that point. These are the upper air temperatures, and the -10 isotherm is coming down across the country. So the ECM does it. It would bring a risk of snow to the north and the east, probably next weekend, 14th, 15th of February. Elsewhere mainly dry, but it probably doesn't last all that long. If we was to go through another 24 hours, we would probably find this being cut off, and the main pool of cold air going down into the east and the southeast of Europe. But you notice it is very cold air that we're talking about here. This could be partly, at least, part of the polar vortex coming down into northern parts of Europe next weekend, 14th, 15th February. So this is very cold air that we're talking about. We're on the edge of it, so we've certainly got to be keeping an eye on it, what's happening there. If I just quickly go back to the ensemble, you can see that this red line just here is the coldest of the GFS ensembles, goes down to -15, 850 HPA. So this really does put it off. And I can actually show you how that pans out. If we go back to the weather outlook, we can see each individual member of the GFS ensemble and see how they all work out. These are always very interesting to look at. Do check these out. They're under the GEFS part of the weather outlook chart viewer. Do check these out. You can see each individual member of the GFS ensemble. This particular cold one is permutation number 20, and this really does pull it off. So if you just quickly run through this, here we are at 120 hours on Tuesday with high pressure in across the country. As we go through, you'll see that what happens is that the high pressure really does pull out into the Atlantic. So there it is still on Wednesday, very dominant. As we go through to Thursday, though, a week away, 168 hours, definite signs of retrogression of that high pressure pulling out into the Atlantic. The cold air's pulling to the north, and there we go. Once you go through to Friday the 13th, very cold northerly winds starting to blast down across the country. And by the time we get through to Saturday the 14th, look at that, we're really getting it, real northerly blast coming down across the country. That's very cold air coming down, more cold, colder than you would typically tend to get, actually, with a northerly flow. So really cold air screaming down across the country with that northerly, and that goes on into Saturday the 15th. You can actually see the upper air temperatures with that as well, and look how cold the upper air temperatures are. There we go on Friday the 13th, cold air pushing southwards through to Saturday the 14th, bitterly cold air coming down. The whole country on that one is within the -10 isotherm, -15 850 HPA air across the northern parts of Scotland. That is daytime temperatures well below freezing the northern parts of the country, and that goes on into Sunday the 15th. So this is an unusually cold shot that's going to be plunging down, I think, into Europe around the middle of February. Now, we're going to be on the periphery of it based on this morning's evidence, and we could get some of it, particularly in the north and the east, but we need to see the high pressure retrogressing more and going a little bit further north and west than the general consensus of the models this morning. And if it does that, then we really will open the floodgates. But at the moment, it looks as though it's probably going to be more to the north and the east. But we do need to keep an eye on it, because this is really significantly cold air that's coming down into Europe around the middle of February. So let's see how it goes. But it could be a significantly cold shock coming through at the end of next week and around the middle of February. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.